What up, my nerds? Today I've got a question for you. Is Mass Effect Andromeda still an RPG, and was the Mass Effect series ever really an RPG series? I think this is an interesting conversation to have, especially with the perception that the RPG genre has been diluted and warped of late, with action games coming out that allow you to, just on a very vague level, pick certain abilities and skills, have some sort of character progression, and so they label it an RPG. And I used to think, wholeheartedly, yes, they're ruining the RPG genre, and, maybe in some cases this is true. Like shooters that you just throw in, hey, here's a token choice here and there, and suddenly it's an RPG. Yeah, okay, I think that's an extreme example. But I'm starting to think that the RPG genre is just so nebulous that sometimes it is hard to define, and things that we wouldn't normally think are RPGs might actually be RPGs. And make no mistake, this is not me being like an apologist for sloppy genre labeling at the very least, or, capitalizing on the interest of a specific genre so that you can shove your product down people's throats and then they realize, oh shit, this is not actually what I wanted, But if we just take a step back here and try and define what an RPG is on a very basic level, I think it's really helpful to look to tabletop role-playing games. So essentially, and of course I'm generalizing here because there's fucking millions of different rule sets and ways of doing it, and every GM has their own style and whatnot. That's really cool. But basically what you've got is a story that's more or less set, at least in theme and world. You've got a handful of characters, you create your character, you decide on a name, you decide on a personality, you decide on skills from a set rule set, from a set pool of skills. You can't just go, of course, depending on the system and the rule set, you can't just go crazy and be like, I'm gonna summon a spectral rhinoceros and be the rainbow wizard or something. You can't go overboard with it. There are rules. You create your character and you have fun in this world, and you go down this set story that the GM has laid out for you. And really, when you explain it like that, it's not that open. I think some people have a tendency to want their RPGs to give them all the choices in the world, and I have absolutely been one of these people, and I still am, and I'm okay being one of those people. I'm not going to say this is a bad RPG or it's not an RPG because it doesn't let me play as the bad guy. And this is something specifically I look for because I really it's just something that doesn't happen very often, and I personally really like exploring why the bad guys do what they do. So I really love it when games let me even just a little bit stray into being the bad guy, or being an asshole, being an anti-hero or something like that. But I'm not going to say it's a requirement to make a good RPG. Now, if we actually circle back to the point of this video, is Mass Effect an RPG series? I actually think it is. Yeah, it's an action RPG, but I think it's a lot more RPG than people give it credit for. The ending to Mass Effect 3 aside, I know people like to bitch and moan about that, and yeah, it was terrible, but it doesn't ruin my enjoyment of Mass Effect 3 in the slightest. I still really enjoyed that game up till that point. But now let's talk about Mass Effect Andromeda, and of course this is where it starts to get tricky, because none of us have played the game. We've actually been fed very little information, especially concerning what RPG elements we can expect. We know that the combat's going to be a lot more fluid, and we have a lot more freedom in building our character from a combat sense, and I think if we focus on what we know first, and that is the combat, yeah, I think it's going to fare a lot better than Mass Effect 1 through 3 in terms of, the choices in building your character for combat. And I'm actually fairly excited about that. It looks like there are a lot more varied skills, which I appreciate. And at first I was like, I don't know about the whole you can spread your grimy little tendrils into every class sort of thing, because it has sometimes a tendency in games to lessen the roleplay factor, I guess, for lack of a better word, and to sound as wanky as I possibly can, because it's sort of difficult to put these restrictions on yourself sometimes and be like, no, I'm going to roleplay a certain way, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the optimal thing to beat the game. And, sometimes that's stupid and counterintuitive. But hey, this channel is all about the roleplay strat, which is not doing things optimally. It's doing things for fun and to roleplay characters. So, if they allow us to really have that freedom in terms of not forcing us to be a jack of all trades for the sake of beating the game, then hey, cool, that's fantastic. And I'm actually really looking forward to, really excited, really pleased that they have made that change to character progression in terms of combat. Now, we have had assurances, I believe, that in terms of dialogue and who you can talk to, how many people you can talk to, your freedom in dialogue choices and whatnot, we have had assurances that it is on par or better than Mass Effect 1 through 3, but at least from what I've been able to find, I don't think they actually are showing us much, if any, footage on that. So we can really only make educated guesses on this, unfortunately, and I guess I'm somewhat optimistic that they're not going to go backwards. I mean, it seems like they're really pushing this semi-open world thing. And I know it's not an open world game, and they haven't specifically said it's an open world game, but it seems like they're pushing, open world sections at least, and an open feel, and this whole exploration thing, which we'll get to in a second. But without knowing more about the story, I guess, and how we fit into it, it's kind of difficult to say. And now moving on to the exploration, they're really pushing this. From the material that I've seen, the trailers, it seems like they're toting exploration as the core of the game. I may be misquoting there, I probably am, but that's the impression I got. Let me know if you got a similar impression in the comments below. And that sort of worries me when they give us numbers about the amount of planets. They're like over 100 planets, which doesn't mean 200 planets. It doesn't mean 150 planets. It's probably like 110 planets or something like that, with most of them not being explorable. And yeah, granted, supposedly these planets you can explore are fucking enormous in terms of the amount of ground you can cover, but it seems like that's probably due to the, whatever the fuck they're calling it, the new Mako. So you drive a lot of places. How densely packed these huge areas are going to be, we really can't say. But I'm personally a little bit concerned for the replayability of Mass Effect Andromeda beyond maybe trying out new builds. But if you're given the ability to mix and match and sort of be a jack of all trades, then that sort of goes out the window as well. And ultimately, how much roleplay potential is going to be in exploring these harsh environments? Make no mistake, I think it's going to be fun. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of roleplay involved in, hey, let's drive around in the Mako 2.0 and, oh, now we have to get out and fight some things and whatnot. On the other hand, it looks like you are actively setting up bases, and you may have some choice, at least in terms of what those bases are geared towards, whether it's science, combat, whatever that means, or trading, which, could be fun. And I hope that gives us freedom in terms of, all right, I want to do like a completely militaristic playthrough and have all of my settlements geared towards combat, and we'll just have all the soldiers, and maybe that'll change the way you play, and maybe it'll change the story, and that'll be really cool if it actually allows you to do that. But if it's just, again, like, you gotta have a balance of everything, which I understand is like realistic, but it also sort of takes your freedom away a little bit. We'll see. Honestly, I think, we're gonna have to go for a little bit of a cop-out answer here, unfortunately, and I apologize. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a mixed bag. I think in terms of combat, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit more roleplay in terms of, the character build and whatnot, assuming that, like I said previously, it's not forcing you to be a jack of all trades. I think in terms of exploration, the potential is there, as long as we have, the freedom to go wherever we want, which I think they have said that we do, but it's Mass Effect, so there's probably going to be a lot of stuff blocked off until you do certain story things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said before, just because I like really super open experiences, it doesn't mean that anything that is not an RPG. And finally, the dialogue. the actual, for lack of a better term, the meat and potatoes of the role playing. Role playing isn't just dialogue and whatnot, but I believe it is a big part of it. I guess it depends how much you trust the marketing material. They've done away with the whole karma system. Is that even what they call it? The Renegade and Paragon system, basically, which I think I kind of like. As long as there's still reaction from your squad mates, I would really love to be able to piss off my squad mates. I don't know necessarily to the point of like losing them as squad mates, like them saying, man, I didn't even know you anymore, and pissing off. I mean, that'd be cool, but I doubt they're going to take it down that road. But, the ability to, like, straight up piss people off and block off maybe entire missions, or block off certain ways to complete missions because you were rude to someone, or maybe because you weren't rude to someone. We don't know what the inhabitants of the Andromeda Galaxy are like. Maybe they're into displays of strength or some shit like that. But that's enough speculation. I think based on what we know, the whole circle jerk of this isn't an RPG, this and that, oh, the world is burning, it's for a different audience sort of thing. Maybe it is for a different audience, and maybe it is a little bit more action focused, but I don't think they're going to completely abandon the RPG elements inherent in the Mass Effect series. Is it going to be a good RPG? That I cannot say. But I'm fairly confident that it will be an RPG one way or another. I don't think it's going to be so shallow as to head towards like a straight up action RPG sort of game, like in the sense of it being Diablo or something. No, we're not looking at something like that, so you can put away your pitchforks. But the absolute best thing you can do to ensure that you don't get quote-unquote burned on Mass Effect Andromeda is not pre-order the game. Whoa, wild concept, guys. Wait for reviews, watch multiple reviews, and make an educated decision before purchasing. So let me know in the comments, guys, do you think Mass Effect 1 through 3 is an RPG series? Do you think Mass Effect Andromeda is going to be an RPG, or is it going to stray wildly into some sort of weird pseudo bad strategy, quote-unquote exploration game, because it's all the rage these days and it's for a completely different audience? And more importantly, what do you think is the quintessential RPG? The game that defines the genre in the video game medium. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. Taste the game, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you next time.